Hey, what's up, Reefers? Today, let's talk about SPS, specifically the Montipora Capricornis. Now, I am not huge on SPS simply because I feel like it's a lot more maintenance than I want my reef tank to be. However, among all the SPS, there are a few relatively easy to keep individuals that I find myself always adding them to my tank even though I have a mixed reef. Specifically, my favorite one would be the Montipora Capricornis. Now, keep in mind that I am pretty much a newbie when it comes to SPS. I've been a newbie in SPS for 10 plus years already. That's how long I've had like a reef tank, and I've always added some sort of SPS in my tank. So what I'm about to tell you comes from a more like a mixed reef guy's perspective. I'm definitely not a SPS guru, nowhere near. But from my perspective, this is what I feel like it's a pretty easy SPS to keep, and they're also beautiful. So let me tell you a little bit more about the Montipora Capricornis. Alright guys, so today we are going to talk about the Montipora Capricornis. Now this was the little guy that you used to see right there. The reason I moved it down here is because recently my ammo crab took it as a mission of his life to knock it down. So earlier this week I decided, okay fine, I mean it's gotten to a size where it's a little bit too heavy to stay on there, so I moved it down here. And I did not know how large this is until I started moving this piece of coral. So that kind of illustrates one of the point why I like the Montipora Capricornis so much. It's because they're so resilient. This colony has been knocked face down into the sand by that emerald crab 3 times in a row this week already, and it still looks brand new. It's like, oh, no problem, it's fine. Dust myself up and try again. So they are resilient, and you will see some dead skeleton in the back right there, and that came from the frog spawn. So when it was a smaller frag up here where the candy cane coral is, it got stung by the frog spawn on a regular basis. Each time it got stung, it's going to recede a little bit. It's going to lay dormant for a week or so, and then the growth will explode, and it will grow over the dead skeleton again. So again, it got knocked back, but it will grow really, really fast. So this is a really resilient and fast-growing coral. That's one of the major reasons I like it, especially because a mixed reef is not a friendly place for SPS in general. Now, I want to further drive home the point that is so resilient is because in my 10 plus years of keeping reef tank, it has always been like a mixed reef, and recently I've been a lot better about doing water change and stuff like that. But in the past, I change water maybe like once a month. I do not run a sump, I do not run a skimmer. It's essentially a large fishbowl. I should post some of my old videos from the past sometime. And out of all the things, all the SPS, the Montipora Capricornis, nothing fazed them. It just continues to grow. Everything's even though other SPS suffers. I've tried other SPS that did not turn out too well. Montipora Capricornis always come out on top, always no issue. So I feel like if you're kind of on the fence about keeping SPS because you're not sure if your tank is quite there yet, I think the Montipora Capricornis will give you a pretty good indication. If a Montipora Capricornis can do well in your tank, okay, maybe you're ready for a little bit tougher stuff like the bird nest or whatnot. But if a Monti Cap is not doing well in the tank, maybe you should get some of the parameter back in line first before trying it again. So that is the first reason I really like the Monti Cap, because they're so hardy, they're so resilient. The second reason is how it looks. People don't see, I guess like people don't think too much of Monti Cap because they consider it easy to keep coral, and they're dime a dozen. However, I feel like they're beautiful. There's so many different types. Monti Cap let's just say Monti Cap. I'm not even going to count like the Digitata or the encrusting type. Monti Cap, there's different color. There's orange, there's red, there's green, there's purple. You know, there's all these different type, and they have different color polyps. There may be the yellow polyp, orange. That's the sunburst, right? And then they have like purple polyp with green. There's all these different variety. I think it's gorgeous. Although among all of them, I like the most basic one. That's this guy. That's just a standard red or orange Montipora caps. And frag are really cheap too because they grow so fast and so many people have them. I think they pick up a frag for like $10 for from Wamas, my local reef club, and it just grows fast. Fast growers. And that's the thing too, because something grows fast, people may not think that it's valuable. For example, green star polyp or frog spawn or xenia. However, I mean, if you put the dollar amount aside and just kind of like look at them by how hardy they are, how beautiful they are, and how much they add to your tank, I do think they are one of the best bang for the bucks in terms of SPS, the Montipora Capricornis. So the second reason I really like them is that they're beautiful and they have really interesting growth pattern as well. They're plating types. Some of these are smoother, like this one's a little bit smoother, and then some of them are a little bit more rigid. They're a lot more ridge. So they're, even within Montipora Capricornis, there are many different types. So you have a lot of choices to pick your favorite ones. And also the growth pattern is really interesting as well. One of my dream coral would be a scrolling Montipora Capricornis. Like as they grow large enough, they will start scrolling. It's really cool. So that is my dream, to have one large head of that. Now, the third reason I really like the Montipora Capricornis is how cheap they are. I kind of touched on it simply because they're so readily available, they grow so fast. Usually people sell them for cheap or just give them out for free. So that makes these guys really accessible. Now, not that I condone using coral to test your water quality, but if you are kind of confident in keeping SPS in your tank, but you're not 100% sure, a $5 frag of Montipora Capricornis will kind of help you, give you a better indicator. So those are the three top reasons why I really like the Montipora Capricornis. Now, of course, there are cons, right? One of the biggest issue is that because they are the plating type, they do shape whatever comes underneath it. So if you get a large colony, they do shape things at the bottom, and that is one reason why a lot of people like to keep the Montipora cap at the lower part of the tank, so they're not shading as many things. Another thing is that they are fast grower. That's why they suck up a lot of calcium and essential nutrient or trace elements. So, but maybe that's a good problem. That's a good problem to have. That's when you can frag it and pass it along to people in your club. But overall, as a guy that keeps mixed reef, and that is kind of like somewhat intimidated by the harder SPS because I don't want to watch parameter all the time. I just want a semi-relaxing hobby. I feel like Montipora Capricornis is a great SPS to have, simply because they're so tolerant of less than perfect environment to grow SPS. And of course, if the environment is right, they just kind of explode in growth. So I say, if you are kind of on the fence about keeping SPS, or you feel that SPS is kind of intimidating, or you just don't want to deal with like doing water tests all the time to make sure you have the right, levels, or you don't want to dose 2 parts and stuff like that to keep the calcium alkalinity up all the time, give the Montipora Capricornis a try. You may be surprised at how well it does in your tank. Now, sometimes people ask me, okay, so when is a good time to add SPS to your tank? Now, again, I am not a SPS guy, so what I tell you is just based from my old experience, when I did things inappropriately, and I can tell you when to start growing well. I find that if I add Montipora Capricornis to my tank about half a year after my tank has been set up, that's similar to when you should start adding an anemone, when your water is a little bit more stable. They tend to do better. They tend to do better after your tank has been up for at least half a year. Now, of course, the older the tank, the better. Well, I shouldn't say that. But I'll say, of course, at like 1 year mark, that's probably ideal. But if you want, I think like after half a year of your tank being set up, and if everything else looks good, like LPS looks good, ZOAs and stuff like that, they're opening, then I think it may be safe to try a Montipora Capricornis. Alright guys, that is about all I got to say about this. If you have a question, please feel free to comment, you know. If I can answer it, I'm sure a lot of these guys are huge SPS guys and they can definitely give you a much better answer than I ever could. But from a SPS newbies that have tried Montipora Capricornis for many, many years, I can tell you that with confidence that this is at least my favorite beginner SPS. They're beautiful. They do well in tank with reasonable parameters, and they are affordable. Alright guys, I hope you guys have a good week, and I will talk to you guys later. See ya!